Good evening. We should be coming in loud and clear. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, Script. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've had a heck of a week just trying to get internet back after a crazy accident. So I'm very grateful that it didn't prevent me from having to push this week's episode back and miss a weekend because 80 episodes and not a weekend missed. Always a broadcast or recorded show at this time slot here on the channel, and I'm hoping to maintain that as long as possible before some sort of crazy machination occurs that causes that to happen.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun thing. Make sure you are steady and consistent. It's one of the hardest things to do is just consistently show up, and when you can do that, it's amazing how much that helps you just get things done.
It really does. It's a good point of an anchor point of organization, and man, it's been a wild ride the last few days because a lot of the stuff I do that's not related to this space is internet dependent. Plus, running down into the city to go on set, and you're constantly texting, chatting, various like Slacks or workspaces or something like that to coordinate stuff. And that eats your data pretty fast when you don't have internet to rely on.
Time to go order a Starbucks and hang out and use their internet, their Wi-Fi, just to
Oh,
make sure you turn on that VPN.
I was looking for a Starbucks, and where we were shooting in downtown Toronto, there wasn't a single one within like 7 or 8 blocks. I've never seen a place so bare. There's a lot of Mofer coffee, and Cafe Espresso, and a couple of Tim Hortons, but no, Starbucks was a foreign element in that area. But I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have you here, Chad, for this week's script because this is gonna be a good conversation. Um,
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna disappoint on this one. There's a lot to cover, a lot of ground to cover.
yeah. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to Scripts on Saturdays, the only screenplay review show on the interwebs discussing scripts both professional and amateur, circulating around Hollywood, giving you, the TV and movie-going audience, a behind-the-scenes and inside track on what writers are pushing and what producers are buying. I am your host, the Script Doctor, and joining me again this week is the wonderful little Chad from the Ascendant Art channel. How you doing, buddy? Glad to have you here.
Doing good, ready to cover this one, which is it's a fun, interesting read.
It is
Interesting.
an interesting read. So, this week's script is titled Vanished. It is written by a writing team of Samuel Franco and Evan Kilgore. This placed 13th on the 2024 blacklist with 22 votes. Little Chad, share with us the log line for Vanished.
All right. So the log line for Vanished is as follows. 10 years after she disappeared as a teen, Violet, now 25, turns up with no memory of what happened to her, but as her family welcomes her home, it quickly becomes apparent that the past cannot be forgiven or forgotten.
Ooh. The synopsis for this screenplay is as follows. Michael Miller, a broken father, faces the shocking return of his daughter, Violet, kidnapped a decade ago. Detective Garcia investigates the chilling mystery behind Violet's reappearance, chasing a shadowy conspiracy. As Michael seeks to rebuild their bond, dark secrets unravel. Will Garcia uncover the truth, or will a sinister force from the past destroy their fragile reunion? So we've got missing persons, suddenly returned type of story. Uh, Echoes of a lot of other screenplays and movies that we've seen before. Um, there's that Ed Harris film from like many years ago.
hmm
Little Chad, you brought up
The
another movie, a Kiefer
The
Sutherland one, The
Vanishing, I think
Vanishing.
it was called. There's um, if I tell the name of another one that it is, but I think it would give away a twist, so I won't. The
Yeah.
because but I will say it's interesting if you look at the difference between the log line and the synopsis. The log line kind of leans into the Violet being the main character that you're going to be following,
Following, yep.
whereas Detective Garcia is the main character of the synopsis. So it's, I mean, if you from those two, I think sometimes the log line and synopsis can give you some very pertinent information. And the fact that the log line and the synopsis are basically pointing you in two completely different directions should help you understand a couple issues with this script.
Yeah, there are some narrative handoffs which are a little rugged, to put it mildly. So the screenplay opens with basically a camping trip between Michael and his daughter Violet, who's 14, and she just got a brand new iPhone that the data for it is being paid for by grandma. And we learn during this camping trip that the reason they're having this camping trip is because dad and mom are getting a divorce, and she's moving to New York and is going to take Violet with her. And I guess they're in Louisiana camping.
Yes, they live in Louisiana, so it looks like they were camping in a possibly a reservation or Indian territory,
Mm-hmm.
and or near one, and then but they were on their way back to where they live in Louisiana.
Yeah, and we also know that so Michael Miller, he's a relatively young dad because he's 36 and his daughter's 15, so he was like 20, 21 when he became a father, and his wife is roughly the same age, and it's trying to be like a kind of a cute relationship between father and daughter. Like he's trying to connect with her. She's clearly more interested in her phone, but she's not upset that they're camping, which I picked up. I thought that's kind of interesting. She's not like making any complaints or causing a problem with her dad about coming up here and sleeping under the stars, eating food. I'm guessing that they hunted or what have you.
Yep.
And it seems like something that they kind of enjoyed doing and are wondering if they're going to do it again now that there's this new change approaching their lives.
Yeah, they do also work in organically within this sequence a couple references to it for most. I mean, I'm just going to assume that most of us either watching the show, commenting in chat, or whatever, are pretty good at picking up on things. There's lines where he's on the phone with somebody unknown,
Mm-hmm.
talking about getting them the money at the deadline that they had, agreed on, and that there wouldn't be any issues. So, that kind of that kind of talk is the, script shorthand for telling you this is a guy in over his head in trouble.
Right.
And, even at what's interesting is they're doing it where he has all these problems apparently happening at once, but he's still trying to put on the happy face for his daughter camping. You get it gets revealed that he's in the midst of like this divorce, that the wife is about to leave to New York.
Yeah,
with Violet.
With Violet because she's got full custody. What's interesting is that, I mean, in one of the phone calls he says, "No, I dropped off the check. They said everything was okay." Then we find out through Violet that the reason her family's being broken up is because her dad cheated, and we are led to infer it was infidelity, but it's actually something else, and that leads into why he's got these money problems with people asking for him, calling him and bothering him over the phone all the time.
Yep, and he's still trying to, again, be a part of his daughter's life, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, well, he
Which
does
is
comment.
nice.
He comments about how he doesn't really trust the boy she's dating, gets the name wrong, and just to really see how much she likes him, it's like she corrects him on that. They pack up their camping equipment in this old pickup truck and decide to drive home. And this is where you get more of the conversations about how grandma is footing some of the bills, and it's making Michael feel like he's emasculated, not able to support his kid. And then they get followed by a car with their high beams on. And so Michael is trying to, change lanes and either get out of their way or get ahead of them. And as he speeds up, the headlights are still, I guess the high beams are still blinding them from behind, like, the reflection in the rearview mirrors, probably causing issues. And then all of a sudden, red and blue lights start blinking in conjunction with the high beams. And we realize, oh, there's a police officer that is now signaling to pull over Michael and Violet. And before we go on to the next beat, what was your thoughts, Chad, about how we got to this point, and also like what tends to follow?
So it was I was suspicious because of the setups. I mean, you see enough movies, television shows where the father's having the money trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I was immediately suspicious of the circumstance of what was happening initially. Then it's revealed it's a cop, and that kind of shifts gears.
Yep.
But then the cop is immediately interested in the daughter in the back seat over the dad.
Yeah.
And the way it's written, the dad is protesting. The dad is not happy about what's happening. So narratively, your perspective is that this is clearly not related to the money conversations he was having. This is something different.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cop, has Violet step out of the vehicle, but leaves Michael, the dad, and then proceeds to indicate that Violet has outstanding warrants for MDMA and drug
use. Yeah.
And drug use. And he says they're out of Louisiana, which tags to, where they live.
Right.
The dad is immediately yelling, "This, you have the wrong person." And the cop proceeds to frisk, which is described very jarringly.
Yes.
the 15-year-old girl, and then grab and abscond with her. He grabs her,
throws her into the back of
her.
the throws her in the back of the squad car. I mean, it was very suspicious when the officer not only asked for the license and registration, but for any ID on the kid. Because that was my red flag. Is like an officer doesn't care about the passenger if they're pulling someone over. Not
exactly.
This early into the investigation, so to speak. And then of course when he comes back, he's got this big story like, "Yep, Violet Harper, your ID checks out that you have an outstanding warrant for MDMA and other drugs. We're going to take you in." The dad is of course protesting, and Violet. Another thing that was also interesting that I noticed as a red flag is Violet was at first recording the encounter on her phone, and her dad tells her to turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why would a dad do that?
What I you know what? It's funny because you bring that up, and I was waiting for that to come up again
mm-hmm.
within the script.
Yeah,
because there would have been footage of whoever this officer was from her recording it.
Ideally, remember the officer was shining their floodlight into the mag light into the car, kind of blinding him, because we never get a description of the cop. We just know his name, or we don't even know his name. We just know he's a cop, and he's asking questions and he's running stuff. And then as he's taking Violet into the back of his car and cuffing her and putting her there, Michael is yelling, what precinct are you taking her? I'm going to follow you. And then the car speeds off and Michael follows them. And then, unfortunately, like a cement truck gets in his way, and he ends up losing the tail that he had on the cop car, and immediately drives into the first off ramp, and then starts asking like where the nearest police station is, because he's got to find his kid. And he ends up finding it's at a fast food joint, and he's talking to the counter staff, and no one really knows. And then the one that does say something points him in the right direction, and it's this it's a native Indian police station where there's a bunch of drunk American Indians speaking in French, and yelling and accosting the officers in that station. And this is where Michael
Hmm.
files a police report. He said, "Hey, one of your cops, I think, took my kid. I need to find out where she is. Can you help me?" And the officers are very cooperative. They call around. And when they come back, they say, "Okay, I need a description of the person that took your daughter. I need a description of the vehicle because we've just checked all the precincts in the area and we don't have your kids. So this is a kidnapping, and we need to get as much information as possible so we can find her because the next 48 hours are crucial." And Michael is
Hmm.
just shocked and to his core.
Yep. And it's at that point I think that we do our 10-year time jump.
Yeah,
Or
well,
is
I
there
mean,
any? Yeah, because I don't think there's really anything else of note after that. They just jump forward 10 years.
no, I mean it's Michael leaves a voicemail on his daughter's phone, hoping that she'll pick up, and then he ends up finding that phone in on the bottom of the passenger seat of his car.
And that's where I thought the video, like he still had the phone.
Yeah,
Somehow later, like we do the 10-year time jump, we're gonna have that video that we can now look back at. Nope, never comes up.
no, well, I mean the
Oh
phone
well.
comes back because he left it on and paid for the service, but that part of the phone, the video on it, never comes up again. And so this entire sequence. We're able to describe it quite fast, but it's about good 25 pages of story in here. All the beats, there's good suspense and escalation. I found with how
Yeah,
they
the
detail.
intro sequence worked fine.
Yeah, because
There was there's a lot of threads that I mean you're at this point I'm set up for a thriller. Like maybe leaning even a horror thriller in the vein of like some of these movies we talked about, like the Ed Harris one, Get the Vanishing, where you're gonna have a family member who's just obsessed, who gets stuck in that moment because of what happened, and spends years pulling on the threads, and so you get a kind of horror thriller, and maybe sort of kind of nah. So, yeah, so we do our 10-year time jump, and I'm expecting at this point, like a lot of movies of this ilk, which had a strong start to get to the point where someone is kidnapped, that we're going to now have the unraveling of the conspiracy and, the thriller horror part.
right.
We move from the 10-year time jump to Mexico, specifically Cancun, where we're, following some drunken college kids from America.
From America, and a 24-year-old woman that's pretty but very much street dirty, and her skin is browned from the sun.
Yeah, so they make a point of kind of describing her that way. We get we get into some parts where obviously some ill behavior is being done by people.
Yep.
So to keep it polite, and this girl escapes, and she's in the middle because and detective police have responded.
Yeah, she
And this
snatches a cell
girl,
phone. I mean, that's one
yeah,
thing. Yep.
yeah. So she was on the verge of being arrested, and when she's about to be arrested, she immediately drops, "I think I was kidnapped. I think I'm from America,
Yeah.
but I don't remember exactly." And then we cut to I think what should be considered the real main character of this movie, Detective Manuela Garcia, who is part of St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office. She's the detective, and she gets this call, and they jokingly only because she's got Garcia in her name, and it's coming in from Mexico.
Yep. They're like, so you can
Which,
speak it, right?
yeah, and I appreciated the beat because it kind of she didn't get like she wasn't getting like pissy about it. It seemed like good kind of police banter between her and another detective.
Yeah.
So I actually thought that actually came off pretty well. for establishing kind of a real colleague relationship with the people she works with.
Yeah. I like
And
the
so
fact that she says, like, why are you giving it to me? Because my name's Garcia. Pretty much, like, I was born in Milwaukee.
in Milwaukee, yeah, from Milwaukee, yeah, which is funny. It's a good beat.
Yeah.
So she ends up being listening to a message from the her counterpart in Mexico, indicating that the person they have is Violet,
Yeah.
or at least yeah, and
It's claimed
that's
to
who
be
the
Violet. Yes.
yeah yeah. So that then we cut, and this is kind of jarring, but it sort of makes sense too. We immediately cut to Michael, back to our dad here that we're following, and he's on the plane flying to Mexico.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you would need a narrative beat for him to get the call. I think it were. I mean, I think everybody would be comfortable assuming as soon as that information came in, Dad would be wheels up going down there.
I mean,
So
it pretty much is because Manuela goes to his house to basically say, "Yeah, I've been trying to call, but I guess you were busy," because she then catches Eve, who's 25, who is the girlfriend of Michael, in the background wearing basically just a blanket. And Michael's pretty dejected by this until Detective Garcia says, "We found your daughter, Mr. Miller, Violet." And then, boom, we are in a Delta Boeing 757, like
yeah,
flying
can
down.
I
Yeah.
can I also I'm going to call out one thing that happens. These schlubby, completely down on their life people
Yeah.
somehow have these early mid 20s incredibly hot girlfriends, and it doesn't make sense to me.
No, I'm pretty. I mean, if they had a lot of money, it would make sense to me. But
Yeah,
here,
at this point, he's supposed to he should be in his late 40s at this point,
yeah, late
from the time
40s.
jump.
Well, I mean, he's described as having a big bushy beard, and he's kind of smelly, and I think he works in landscaping now. But he's somehow won over the heart and loins of a 25-year-old waitress.
Who, by all accounts, is very attractive according to the script. Like, the script literally says beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, and it's, I don't want to make assumptions, but it's 2025. Like, if she's that kind of hot girl, I mean, she might have OnlyFans option. I don't get it. There's and it happens in a lot of movies and TV shows
Yeah.
where you'll have like these, and it's because I get the financial reason. You want to put hot girls in a movie.
Yep.
It helps. When I watched season 1 of True Detective, did it make sense that Woody Harrelson was with Alexandra Daddario? No,
No.
not in the least.
But we're
Was there a
grateful we
lot
saw it.
of yeah? Was there a lot of excellent scenes that came out of that? Yes, yes, there were. And did that help help True Detective be a show that I enjoyed watching? Occasionally, yes, yes, it did.
It helped a lot of people think it was brilliantly written when I thought it was kind of mid.
Yeah,
I love the
I
acting
mean,
in it, but I'm like,
like you see, the movie like Gone Girl, like Emily Ratajkowski. In like, does it make sense she would be slumming with Ben Affleck, who is a like failing dive bar owner in in the context of that movie? No,
it's
no, it
also like
really doesn't.
it's also like the sitcom syndrome, right? Where the stand-up comedian gets a sitcom and obviously he has like a killer-looking wife, and you're thinking, no, I mean, listen, I know humor can go a long way, but the character in the context of the pilot of the episode of this TV series, he's not supposed to be funny. He's actually just pathetic, and the wife is still with him, and you're like, no, this I'm not buying this. Nobody can
Yeah, I
stand
don't.
Ray Romano that much.
But even, well, she was actually still not like that one seemed okay. Like Tim Allen with what's her name on
with
Home
yeah,
Improvement
with
were
Patricia,
okay.
what's her name? Yeah,
It was when you started getting those weird ones where it would be like Kevin James with Leah Remini, and you're like, yeah, okay,
yeah.
that's stretching it a little bit. And then you'd get, I remember there was one with Jim Belushi where it was I
It was
forget what her
according to
name
Jim, I
was.
think. Yeah,
Yeah, where it was the really, I think, was it Elizabeth the girl from like Melrose Place was like his wife.
Elizabeth Shannon.
what I forget.
One
Yeah,
of
I
them,
don't know.
something.
Remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was a very attractive blonde woman that didn't seem to fit the
Right.
scale. And that became like you mentioned it. Even my wife hates like has pointed out how much she hates that. Like it's very like it's so noticeable. She's as My wife is as oblivious to these kinds of tropes as anybody, and she notices it. And we get it in the script. And
Hmm.
there's reasons that they want to have they need. This is, I think, one of those things where they worked backwards. They had the scene they wanted later,
Hmm.
and they needed for that scene, to happen, they needed to have this girl in place now.
Yeah. I
And
think you might be onto something there. Yeah.
and so yeah, so anyway, so Dad Michael hops on the Boeing, the Delta, whatever flight it is,
Yeah.
uh, and flies right down to Mexico, goes and meets up with his ex-wife,
Yep.
who he hasn't seen in years, which again makes sense. They were already getting divorced. This whole trauma, they would probably be very estranged.
Yes. And
And they go into the police and they effectively just take custody of this girl, saying that she's Violet.
yeah, I mean, even well, they're asking right away. Can we see our child? Where's our daughter? Where's our daughter? They show the detective Barrera shows the Violet through one way mirror so that she can't see them, and of course, Michael just freaks out, saying it's her. That's her. Oh my God, that's her. And then Violet kind of leaves the interview room, takes a look at Michael, asks if it's Dad, and then he just pulls her into his arms, and it's like weeping all over there. And Joanne, the wife, is kind of doing the same thing. They're just so happy to see their kid. They recognize Violet. Beneath the bruises on her face, beneath the age, after being learned that from Detective Barrera that usually in kidnapping cases like this, that Violet would have been horribly abused, so she might have a great deal of trauma, and not be able to remember or recall or say anything because the only way she was able to identify her parents was basically by the missing persons photos, and they tried to match her face with the last photo they had of Violet, and that's how they found Michael and Joanne. And so from that point on, they hop back onto a plane to Louisiana, where Joanne and Violet will be staying with Michael and Eve in their original home, while they try to get Violet acclimated to their lifestyle, and also help her recover and find out what happened to her. And that's going to be the next big stage of the script. And I thought, okay, you've got this scene. It plays out pretty well. Definitely, if it visualized, it would make a lot of people feel happy and relieved and excited. But then we're wondering, okay, is this story now going to be talking about how do each of these parents approach Violet with regards to her trauma and what they need, and
Yeah,
will
are we
Violet be
looking?
able to get back into the swing of things? Yeah,
Yeah, are we getting into like a room situation
yeah,
where, that was again, that's an Oscar-winning alleged performance by Brie Larson. When it's weird to think that a like 8-year-old Trembe like carried her to that Oscar, but like the kid should have won the Oscar, not Brie Larson. But there's been a lot of movies where we've started addressing unpacking trauma. Is that what we're getting here?
hmm,
We get a good several pages where it's the home life and the acclimating. We're getting through some things. We also have the issue with Joanne, who's now come to stay at the house. Presumably this was their family home when they were together.
yeah,
And I think they kind of mentioned that it was. But then she discovers that Michael is living there with Eve, who is again in the script described as incredibly beautiful, as she's stepping out of like a shower scene with a towel on. Like
Yep.
that's her reveal to Joanne, that that's happening. And but so we've like so for a good amount of story beats, I think let's see,
Page mid
we're
30s. Yeah.
yeah, we're getting it to around page 40 before we return to anything that isn't the family life.
Yeah.
This is what we're dealing with. So the movie turns again. So we have that intro sequence leading to the kidnapping. Then we get the return of Violet. So then, and we're dealing with family trauma, an unpacking, reintegration for a good 20 pages. And then we flip again, and we get back to the detective, who's now coming back to, and rightfully so, because now if Violet is back, you'd want to start seeing as much as possible if she can remember who was it who kidnapped her
Hmm.
in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
And she still doesn't have any memory of that. We get it. We get a couple. Again, this is where we're doing the tour of family reintegration, and the script starts noting inconsistencies and issues with this reintegration. People having quiet doubts, specifically Joanna, the mother, having a little bit of concern with the way Violet is behaving coming home.
Yep.
I think the real payoff scene in this whole sequence, and because there's a lot going on, but the part that I think is the next like important, kind of really important for the plot sequence, is when Joanna takes Violet to visit her mother.
Yes. And grandma is in a nursing home and is not all there, not all
and
with it.
and this is actually, I like this
Hmm.
because this is where we start shifting the script into more of a thriller horror again. But we do it in the way where, in order to give a character who's organic, plausible deniability, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're watching thriller horrors, it's another thing where you're used to the idea that the audience yells, "Bitch, don't do that. That's stupid." Like don't like, why are you doing that? So you have to give some kind of narrative plausible deniability is what I think of. And in this case, they make Grandma a completely unreliable narrator within the sequence.
Yeah. And they do it really well.
Yeah, and they do it in a way where even as the audience, you can easily put yourself into the role of Joanna and deny what Grandma says, because when they bring Violet in, Joanna's mother, Peggy, immediately says, "That's not my granddaughter. That's not Violet.
Right.
Who
And
did
that,
you bring here?
what are you
But then
doing?
she immediately calls her daughter her sister.
Yeah, he calls her Pearl. It's like, I'm not Aunt Pearl. I'm
Yeah.
your daughter, Joanne.
Yeah. So they do such a great job of immediately discrediting the person delivering the message,
Yeah.
which is something that some other people in a movie that may have just come out should understand, that sometime if you have an unreliable narrator who you can't trust in terms of the messages they're broadcasting, you shouldn't always just take it at face value.
That's right. It's a type of archetypal thing. In this case here, Peggy is someone who is suffering from mental degradation. And she gets confused, and she doesn't always know what is going on. And she has her good days and her bad days. And this is reinforced by the nurse. This is reinforced by Joanne when she's trying to explain this to Violet. And when we get this outburst by Peggy, we are now in a comfortable situation where we can realize, okay, so old grandma has got her own type of trauma from trying to sort her memories out. They're not lining up in the manner that they should, and she's making outbursts and emotion and is very quick to anger when braced with something that up until for the last decade she's had to accept that her granddaughter has been gone.
Yeah, and this is actually a really great bit of writing.
Mm-hmm.
This sequence is exactly how you do it. You give the audience the kernel, but you immediately make it so the person in the cinematic universe that this is happening in would disregard it immediately.
Yeah.
And and this is how the line goes, because this is Peggy Bentley, and she's getting and this is delivered very angrily. I'm not confused. I'm not confused. That's not her. I'd know my Violet anywhere. That's not, I'm not, that's, I'm not confused. I'm not. It isn't funny, Pearl. It's mean. You're making fun of me. I'm not a fool. It's not like, and that's where Joanne says, "I'm not Pearl, your sister. I'm your daughter." So right there, that is enough for Joanne to immediately disregard what her mother is saying.
Yep.
But as the audience, this is we're well trained in the idea of people in like insane asylums, elderly people who are suffering from dementia in the thriller horror universes generally tend to be the people who give you those first bits of like truth
Or clarity, or
or clarity, like
means
they're
of
seeing the
exploration.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they are outside of the norm, and as such they are able to put words to truth that people who are blinded for their own biases can't. It's a good way to deliver, and it's tried and true, because it gives your characters the reason to not believe, but gives the audience the ability to start suspecting and looking closer at what's going on. Because in a thriller horror, the audience having more knowledge of various things that could be happening escalates the tension. It lets the audience's imagination start running wild. It's a Hitchcock technique.
Yeah.
What the audience can envision is always better and more tense than what you as a filmmaker can do. So let that run wild.
100%. I mean, it's what makes great horror. It doesn't work in a mystery, but it does work in horror, and that's kind of what you want. With the mystery, you're allowing the audience to generate puzzle pieces, and then if they are in the same mindset that you need them to be by the manipulation in the script, they start to get a nice little boost of adrenaline or serotonin when the puzzle that they manage to identify fits with a new piece that comes into the fray. And that's where you get your engagement, and that's where your wheels start spinning. And when you have a point of drama like this one here, where you've got, okay, we have an old lady with dementia says one thing that is designed to instill doubt with the audience regarding the claims that are made from Violet, and also the affirmation that Joanne and Michael have made identifying Violet as their kid. So now we're in this area. It's like, okay, so grandma's delusional, but she says it's not her kid. So we already know Joanne and Michael are accepting her as the daughter, and that Violet's got a plausible reason for not being able to talk about her trauma or even remember many things of her past. So right now we're in that whole empathetic. It takes time for things to come back to the surface, and you just got to wait.
And we also get narratively that this, even though she disregards it in the moment, driving home with Violet, quote unquote Violet.
Yeah.
Joanne has creeping doubts coming in, because she has she says an interesting line to Violet. You know that she was the first person to hold you besides me. Like, she's known you since, she's known Violet since birth.
Right.
Violet was like the most important person in the world to her. And they make a note of her, like, I can see the kind of like cuts they would do where they'd be in the car while this conversation is happening, and you could almost, if Violet would be sitting in the back seat, you'd pan to like see Joanne's eyes in the rearview mirror watching her.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're indicating that she's looking for the reaction, and Violet is deadpan. It moves her not that that Joanne was bringing up her grandmother.
Yeah.
And even though they continue to drive home, and Joanne said, "We'll just make plans for you to spend some more time with her, and it'll be fine." The screen direction is for her to be indicating visually doubt as an actress.
But what I really liked is the fact that Joanne is so focused on Violet that when she stopped at the light and she's just staring at her, Violet has to be the one to remind her that it's green. Because she's telling her you gotta go.
And I want to say again for the writers, if they're listening, this part of this sequence of the script is working very well.
Oh yeah.
It's smartly written. It could easily be smartly acted. You're giving your actors a good opportunity to act with their eyes, to act with their looks, which actors are, hopefully good at. And again, smartly written, it's setting the audience on a path of being uncomfortable because as an audience, you want to root for a kid being returned after what is probably a very traumatic 10 years.
Yep.
You are hoping that you are getting the story of the reintegration. Now things are starting to, like, if it's a Jenga tower, blocks are starting to fall out. Like you're starting to, that really happy story is starting to become more questionable, and it's working very well. At this point it was a nice slow build for that, and they were doing it in the right way with good writing.
Hmm.
The problem is then we cut to again what looks like our real main character, which is Detective Garcia, who's operating in a whole different movie. Like she's not operating in the horror thriller, she's operating in the mystery detective movie.
Yeah. Because well, she's kind of keeping tabs on Violet, and while she's watching Violet and Michael in the truck, Michael is trying to teach Violet how to drive. And for Garcia, as she watches this, something is just nagging at her that this isn't right. Something is not adding up here. And that starts to drive her to dig a little deeper. And also tie up loose ends on her paperwork because she hasn't completed it all yet.
Can I also say that sequence with her watching them
Yeah.
in the context of the entire script is actually very problematic because past where we're going to be cutting off today on this script, there's parts that are really negated by what we're supposedly seeing right now. Specifically, the description of the interactions between Michael and Violet.
Yeah.
And there's something you could clean up with that, but I I have problems with the way these sequences are described, given what's going to happen past our cutoff.
Yeah. No, I think you're right there because it's not even Garcia. It's not about Garcia watching Michael and Violet. It's just the interaction between Michael and Violet that's off here.
Mm-hmm.
But but then we cut inside the scene and we actually get to see these two kind of interacting on their own. And Michael remembers that he should have got Violet her favorite sandwich, which is a po' boy, which I've never had before, actually. Just never.
Oh, they're delicious.
I've been told, but I've never had one. So I know if I head out to Louisiana next, that's probably going to be one of the first things I order.
Yep. All right. So this sequence was very confusing to me. All right. They see the two girls.
Mm-hmm.
Michael says, "You remember Ashley and Emily." Violet turns, looks at him. He nods at the VW. She says that's not Ashley or Emily. He's riveted now, and so he says, "So you do remember them?" And he says, "No, I don't. I don't know. It's just I know it's not them." And I'm with full knowledge, that sequence is very confusing about who's playing who for what reason.
Right.
And what is the truth in that one? So because it looks like she knew that it wasn't her old friends and he was testing her.
Yeah.
But she passed.
I mean, sometimes that can happen, I guess. It's just like, what are the odds that when Michael refers to these two women of equal age to Violet across the street, that those would be the same people Michael is referring, and Violet gets it right that no, those are not who I remember, and I don't know them, but I know those two are not them. It's a little battle of wits here, I think. Or is it? Like, is it just frustrations? Or is it that they're leading into I mean, because we do get that one scene where Violet is reintroduced to her boyfriend at the time, who, um, they have a conversation, and then Violet goes in to kiss him, and then he holds her back, says, "No, I'm with someone now. I'm sorry." And Violet apologizes, gets all embarrassed, and then kind of leaves. And that scene was there to try to make us, or better convince us, that this Violet did remember something. But no, she doesn't. We don't get more of that type of memory, or anything that she says that helps bring the original Violet back to the surface, at least for another 20 or 30 pages.
Yeah, because then we cut to Detective Garcia's home life,
Yeah,
which is so unnecessary for this movie.
yeah, it really is. Talking about like
I
Lego ninjas and stuff.
we get probably between this and the other 7 to 10 pages of her interaction in home life that have no real value for the narrative.
No,
Whichever narrative you're following, whether it's detective story narrative or because you could easily any really pertinent stuff that for the detective story, because there's a couple nuggets mainly in her talking it to herself out loud, soundboarding.
yeah,
You could move those to other conversation. I I really, if you're going the detective story route, and maybe this is personal preference, I like the idea if you're gonna make it the kind of detective that is completely like obsessed with getting things right. And again, maybe this is a trope. I want them to not have a wife, to not have a girlfriend, basically, that they are so obsessed with cases
and
and doing this stuff, like a lot like Morgan Freeman in Seven.
yeah, I was thinking that too. Like this, we're getting scenes with Garcia and her family life that are akin to Brad Pitt's character with his wife, that are akin to the detective in Fargo with her husband, and that whole stamp
Yeah.
subplot that doesn't actually have any bearing on the principal plot itself. And I get the feeling that the writers are trying to provide stakes for Manuela Garcia because her wife is getting really upset that she's been so obsessive over this case that she might be neglecting her and their two boys, one of which has a birthday around the corner.
And I do appreciate a good standard issue. She's a police detective, so she's got to be a lesbian in 2025. But
Yeah.
it's at least they don't like try to like bury you in that kind of thing.
They don't
It's
try
just
to
kind of
make the
it's matter
relationship.
of fact.
It's a matter of fact. They don't make the relationship inauthentic, and they don't dwell on it with regards to the fact that they're lesbians. It's really just a boilerplate. Oh, my spouse is so obsessed with their job, I'm feeling neglected. That's the framework that is behind this. It has nothing else. Anything else is only something that you can infer from other films, not from what's being put on the page here.
Yep. And then as quick as we're in with Garcia and her home life, we flip back into now again, we've established the doubts, so now we're back to Joanne and Violet. She's getting subtle, not quite right answers, and but not so bad that given the circumstances you would immediately like not disregard. You're like, this is perfect. This is good writing. We're
Yeah.
back to good writing. Where there's nothing here where if you're a mother be just overjoyed your daughter's back, that you couldn't easily rationalize what you're getting. They're clues that work on like on a totality of evidence scale eventually. But for a mom who thought her daughter at this point, and given it's been 10 years, she probably had already mourned her daughter and thought she was dead. If you're a mother getting a second chance, These are easy, organic things to just be like, oh, it's just a little thing, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, like the whole story with the bracelet, that was pretty nice, and I liked how Violet says, "Oh, it reminds me of you," and Joanne says, "You used to say it reminded you of Nana," and then I thought this was a nice little kicker towards the end of the scene, because Violet is eating ice cream because she couldn't sleep, and Joanne is
You used to have the problem with the ice cream.
So yeah, it's like
lactose.
Yeah, you couldn't handle dairy when you were little, so and so
And then I like the screen direction too. Like she stares at her, and there's something about her intensity that was unsettling. Like where now we're starting to get, and this is going to be delivered by the actors. You need somebody who can pull it off. But if you get somebody who does pull that kind of look off, it would be, again, as the audience, you have Joanne, maybe look away while that stare's happening,
yeah.
where you're getting information that Joanne wouldn't have. You're seeing the look that she didn't. And again, the Hitchcock vibe, right? You are now going to fill in gaps. And that's where you can make things more nefarious in your own mind. Well written. Mm-hmm. This part is so much better than the detective story.
Well, there's more intensity to it, yes. And it's also, we're getting fed some extra points of doubt before we start getting fed some other points of confirmation, really, which is pretty cool, because once we jump from that scene, we wind up with Garcia, who's calling Detective Barrera in Cancun, saying, "Hey, so I need you to send me the results of the DNA test."
We had skipped over this a little bit because it kind of wasn't. It was probably the one important detail from when she was talking to her. She asked, the Violet had indicated she got a DNA test done in Mexico,
right,
to verify paternity and identity before she returned to Louisiana.
That's right, and now Manuela Garcia wants to get that paperwork so that she can close this part of the case. And this is where we get a nice little commentary on Mexican policing, where Detective Barrera's like, "I don't understand. The father recognized her the moment he saw her, and that wasn't good enough for us."
So this is the part that doesn't pass the sniff test for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can get that they didn't do a DNA test. Maybe, because a DNA test is a little bit outside of field. If you're just like, somebody was, running away with a phone,
right?
Because that was the initial, start of of this whole thing,
right?
You're gonna fingerprint them.
That's right.
There's no, I can't think. I mean, I guess maybe it'll happen, but to my knowledge, no police department, no matter how podunk in the entire United States, and I would even think all of Mexico, when you're in custody for days, which she would have been,
mm-hmm.
would not take your fingerprints and run them through the system to check identity.
Exactly. I mean, the question is, what level of access does Mexico have? Number two, what are the odds that a 14-year-old girl, before she was kidnapped, would have ever had her fingerprints taken? Yeah. And also, what are the odds that even the police, if they were to search her home to try and find fingerprints to put on record so they could find her one day, how accurate would those be? Having family in the police department, I can tell you, those types of situations are always a pain in the butt for them, because it's like, if it's a kid that's never committed a crime, they don't have the fingerprints. All they've got is the photos, and even in whatever they take off of their desk, or if their phone or television remote or anything, it's never 100% useful in that point. So what they usually end up having to do is, when someone claims in, they do simple blood work, and not even DNA test, just a general blood work, which is they take the blood of the parent, they take the blood of the both parents, they put it in this radioactive gel, and it separates the blood into various layers. And then they do that with the kid, and then they match it up. And if it matches up properly, they say it's a 90% chance that it's the same. And then they do the current DNA test, which basically makes for confirmation. But yeah, like in this case here, you would expect, okay, you come in, you say, "Yep, that's my kid." The police on their side of things, even I would assume in Mexico, would say, okay, so in order to make sure everything's above board, we're going to do a standard DNA test so that we have on record that the parents are actually genetically related to this child that is now an adult, but that they're taking out of our country and returning them to their country. That seems like something you kind of want to have.
Exactly, and that's where this starts to strain some credulity in my mind. It's not the again. This is why I just find the thriller horror parts much better written than these
Then the
other ones
procedural,
because
yeah.
on the procedural side, we're assuming a lot of just things not getting done in order to build the procedural elements. Whereas on the horror thriller side, we're getting well written, well laid out sequences that work pretty well on paper. So Garcia finds out that they didn't do a DNA test. She goes to her I guess captain, sergeant, whatever the rank would be.
Yeah, the lieutenant above her, yeah.
Yeah, tells him that we need to do one. He says we need to go down there. Well, here's the thing. He doesn't, I guess the cop in Mexico doesn't tell her that they didn't do a DNA test. He just said, I'm not sending you anything. I'm done.
Yeah,
we're out, right?
So she wants to go down there, physically get it.
I mean, in the age of Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all this other stuff, she somehow thinks that you immediately jump to, I'm flying to Mexico to go in person. Which maybe you would call the State Department and let them know that it's an active case and you need their assistance to force
the issue,
the information.
Well, listen, if
get
this
the
is
entire case file.
Yeah, if this was like 1983, I could believe that. It's like, yeah, we're going to make a request. We're going to send someone down there to physically get a copy of the file, verify it, bring it back here for us to follow up with. But yeah, in current day era, it's very much like, okay, you send, I think you'd send a formal request through the various agencies that are networked with each other. So, or if not, you maybe go through Interpol and then have them help you out to get the last bits of information to wrap up this case, especially if it's just like a matter of record as opposed to, oh, okay, we're talking about finding somebody, we're talking about going through all the checks and balances for a DNA test and of course the expense that comes with that and how can it be justified, all that, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, no, if anything, I think it would have been better if Detective Berra merely said, yeah, all we needed was the father to confirm identity, and we didn't run a DNA test. And then that's where Garcia says, well, Violet told me that you guys ran a DNA test, so who in your department would have done that? And that's where Barrera would be like, oh, I don't know. And there's your question that could say, okay, now Garcia can justify going down there because she's got to start figuring out who the heck maybe took this DNA test, if at all. And you can get that, especially with Barrera saying, there's no way I'm going to go around and look for it. There's too much stuff on our plate. So sorry, you're just going to have to take the word for it, the word of the father for it. And Manuel is saying, nope, I'm not going to do that. That can get you to Cancun. But I felt even with the scenes following Garcia and Cancun, they didn't feel like they were necessary. They could have been cut out. And you could
the procedural is such a weak part of the script.
Yeah.
Because once when she's doing, like, right after she leaves the, like, big standoff with her lieutenant to go on this trip to Mexico, we cut back to the house and we get, again, really good elements of the possible manipulation or possible reintegration. We're still a little fuzzy. Which is rightfully so. It's trying to keep you that way, keep you off balance. So do you know one way or the other? Mm-hmm. Violet is now saying that she remembers being abducted and the bad things that were done to her that night. It immediately elicits a safety response from Joanna, the mother, because what mom isn't going to try to make their daughter feel good as when she's sharing such an awful situation?
Yeah.
And then we get this, again, knowing where the script goes in its entirety, something that's completely unnecessary. Whereas Eve seeing a reconciliation of emotion between Michael and Joanna.
Yeah. where they're kind of
Which-
just making out a little bit on the on the couch.
Yeah, it served, and it really was like there's this whole element where they add in like a jealousy between Joanna and Eve towards one another
Yeah.
because Violet starts getting close to Eve on a friend level.
Hmm.
And it sort of makes sense. Like, this is the one person who doesn't have preconditions on who Violet's supposed to be. So it would make sense that she could easily start bonding with someone who is also her own age, you know, and, on a friendship level, and that Joanna, seeing that easy bond, starts having like jealousy that her daughter that she just got back is more interested in kind of having an emotional relationship with this girl Eve, who is also shacked up with her ex-husband.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I mean, there's good elements to mine that are meaningless and go nowhere. Like, we have these sequences that are I would call red herrings.
They're red herrings. They're designed to do a little bit of Basic Instinct aspects to it. A little nods there to Esther Haas.
Yeah, and it makes you think that maybe there's something going on conspiratorial with Eve and Violet.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, Bound, Basic Instinct, any of those kind of, I would say, sexy thrillers.
Yeah, because
it seems a little out of place with where they had been going previously with this one.
well, I mean, especially once we skip over Garcia in Mexico, where she gets confirmation from Barrera that they have no records, that the only reason that Violet is with the Millers is because Violet identified that she's part of that family. Otherwise, she would have been incarcerated and would remain there probably for, a few years for the theft of the phone. And also that they didn't run anything on her. Oh, no, wait, no. They did say that they ran her checks, but they didn't have any record of her in Mexico. Now, that was something very specific that they pointed out, is that she had nothing in Mexico. And we don't have Garcia say, well, what about outside of Mexico? Because then that would be a point where it's like the police would be, well, why would we do that? Maybe she's a criminal from some other country. Well, then that's their problem. Yeah, but she's in your country.
So from this, Garcia decides to then, put shoes to pavement.
Yep.
And go, try to seek out the people who may have known Violet in Mexico. She gets a lead. She gets a hit by paying another girl who works as a friend to people for money.
Mm-hmm. Good companion. Yep.
Yeah, and this person says that she knew who Violet was and that she was from Argentina. She was Isabel Pena from Argentina and had been on those streets for a little while before she left.
Yeah.
To which Detective Garcia then phones up a contact she had and has this Detective Fox, I think, who was the one who had the banter with her.
Yeah, it's basically, it's like a partner, but not, it's like her work husband of sorts, because he does stuff for her, but, you can tell that there's a back and forth where they do help each other out. And of course, Fox is worried that his girlfriend's going to get jealous that Garcia keeps calling him, which is a nice little touch.
So she asked specifically to run the data for Violet for Argentina.
For Argentina, for this Isabel woman,
Pena. Yep. Then we get a really interesting non sequitur with
we get something that doesn't need to be in the script, but it's there.
Yeah. Which again, this is the Alexandra Daddario sequence, right? Where for no good reason, completely unnecessary to the script, Violet stumbles across her dad banging Eve with the door open.
Yeah. And Eve has got her face towards the door so she can make eye contact with Violet. And Yeah, this is all just like a throwback to Esterhaus and his sexy crime thrillers of the late
Yeah,
80s, early 90s.
and bear in mind the weirdness of this sequence, because as far as Eve knows, Violet is Michael's daughter,
Right.
and she's, for lack of a better term, getting extra hot, making eye contact with her boyfriend's daughter, watching her have relations with
Her
with
boyfriend,
her.
yeah.
I mean, it's creepy.
It's
It's
very
like,
creepy, yes.
and so again, this is coded to start giving you, like you said, the Basic Instinct Joe Esterhaus like sexy thriller vibe.
Yeah.
Single white female, this whatever,
In the heat of the night. Or, sorry, not in the heat of the night. Was
But
it?
it's again, so this is the third movie we have going on.
Yeah.
So we have the horror thriller of the girl who may not be the girl in the house.
Right.
We have the procedural detective movie going on.
That's
And
right.
now we've added the sexy thriller.
Now we got the
Where
sexy
Eve
thriller.
is where Eve is some sort of corrupt, and of course the name choice with Eve. Come on, I mean, whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
could you? Some writers, you're so smart with other parts of this script. You can be you're better than that.
Right.
You know?
Lucy
Oh,
would have
look,
been a
it's
bit more
Eve.
too on
It's
the
the
nose.
original
Too.
sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at me. She's gonna corrupt you. Um, where Eve, now we have this whole thing where maybe Eve is a corrupting influence, and she feels like she's gonna get pushed out by, so she's claiming her territory and may even go further, and maybe she's the evil one in this thing,
Right.
where Violet is Violet, but she doesn't like being replaced. And you know what? That would be, if you go that route, it might make sense that a hot girl like that is with somebody like Michael, because it's the crazy hot, angle.
Yep.
You know,
That's the whole
but
graph there, right?
yeah, but she does, but they never really, do we even have more than, does Eve even have like lines in the movie?
Just
Aside
just a
from
few.
this-
One,
I mean, we have this one where she's harder,
yeah.
whatever.
The whole
I mean,
communications
I think
and sex. But then
that
there's
might be her only line in the entire movie.
no, because Eve and Violet go out shopping and they talk about the fashion, and
Okay, yes.
and then there's that, and I think Eve really only has like four scenes of lines, and they're very minimal. Like we don't get a whole lot out of Eve, at all through her part of the story. She's very much a character that you could argue can be pulled out. Now, one of the reasons why I would argue to keep her in is that some of the elements that Eve is used for later, you can't give to Joanne without compromising what the outcome of the script is.
So if you take out the procedural
Yeah.
and then you use Eve to kind of obfuscate the is Violet storyline, I don't mind it as much,
Yeah,
because you want to keep the audience a little off guard on which thing is right.
Right.
So if you start doing the Eve side of it, right as the audience would think they know what's going on, you change it up and you start pushing the Eve as the sexy temptress angle.
Yeah, her world is coming to a collapse because her boyfriend might hook up, reconnect with his ex-wife, because their missing daughter has come back into the picture. So now it's like, oh, instead of starting a family with Eve, he's rebuilding the family that was taken away from him from years earlier. And that's the threat. Yeah.
Yeah, so you could play with it where if you take out the procedural and minimize it to just what's needed for these other two elements. Because there is a minimum level of like interaction with police that you'd have to have for the script to kind of come off plausibly. But you can cut out like a lot of the other stuff we talked about.
Cutting out
enhance
Mexico, cutting out Garcia's home life. You don't need that, yeah.
Yeah. So you get Violet back, you start making the audience question if Violet's Violet. But then you throw him the curveball that Eve is just the sexy temptress corrupting her.
Mm-hmm.
Because out of jealousy of possibly losing her boyfriend and her household, her queen status, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you give the audience two equally plausible routes so that they can be sort of shocked. Because again, with a thriller, you do want to create suspense and shock within the audience. You don't, it's not a matter of like, subverting in a silly way. You're designed to keep, like a thriller is designed to keep someone off guard till you get the aha moment. Do it like, so yeah, I could, you could rework that to kind of make it plausible where the audience is just not sure which way it's going yet till you get the third act twist that locks it in. And, I think it would come off better.
Yeah, I think there'd be something there for it. Because I do agree that this script has a procedural storyline that definitely buttons up with the thriller storyline, but the tones of each one don't feel as married together as you'd like them to be. And then you even get this other red herring, which is the Christine Chong, the journalist that's constantly trying to get the story out of Violet. And I even think she makes an argument that says these other kids that were kidnapped for years and then came back, they immediately told their story, wrote a book, did everything. And here's Violet, weeks if not months back in the stateside, and she's avoiding the press, and she's not telling anything of her story, not even remembering anything of her story, at a rate that is much slower than has ever been recorded by other people in nearly identical situations as Victoria. So there's your interesting question to explore, your strange attractor, if you will. And I think it could be plausible if you had Eve be that character that's pushing the doubt all the time to then get towards the truth. And to make it more dramatic, you have her motivation is purely selfish. It's not for the benefit of her boyfriend or the benefit of Joanne or the benefit of Victoria. It's for the fact that if this family gets back together, she's now got to find a new place to live and a boyfriend to be loved by. And I think those are more interesting stakes in that dynamic. When you pair it up to Michael, who feels horrible guilt for having lost his daughter a decade ago and wanting her back, and then at the same time, Joanna may be looking at Michael and her daughter back in her life again with a different lens, because as far as we know, Joanna's not in a relationship. She's alone, just a workaholic essentially.
Yeah, they don't. Her personal life is really never addressed.
Yeah. We know that she took her maiden name because it's the same as her mother's that we're introduced to. And we know that she's not in a relationship because she had no qualms about kissing her ex-husband. So, yeah, it's I kind of wish I had a little bit more going on with Joanne. Her story and what's going on there.
Yeah, this is just the extra pages they give to the Garcia
Family
character
life,
should really be reallocated to fleshing out Joanne and just the family thriller aspect. Because I think just from quality of writing, the writing in that angle is much higher and good.
Yeah.
And the procedural part is the weak part of the writing.
Well, because it's very matter-of-factly, and it doesn't feel like even the clues that are discovered, like they run a check on Isabel from Argentina. They get a photo ID that verifies what Isabel looks like, and lo and behold, it looks nothing like Victoria. It looks kind of similar, but not enough to convince Garcia that Isabel is the same person. And then the next beat we get is that, oh yeah, by the way, this Isabel Pena, she was found dead. So whatever happened, we don't know if Victoria took her identity or if the people that kidnapped Victoria took her identity and used it on Victoria so they could get her across the border again. It's all left up in the air, which is cool for Garcia because that gives her more questions, but it comes so direct that it doesn't have that same intensity, it doesn't have that same framework that we get when we're on the Miller side of the story. It just doesn't. Mm-hmm. It just feels like two writers wrote this, so maybe one writer wrote the Miller side and the other writer wrote the procedural side, and that's why there seems to be a slight disconnect.
There is, that would make a lot of sense for why there's such a tonal difference.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've come in contact with especially when I work in writing pairs. Like, yeah, I'll beat out one side of the story and I'll write my pages for that because I know how to integrate those pages into what my partner is writing as well. But then afterwards, what we do is we then switch. We then rewrite the other person's scenes with the same type of tone that we had done, and then we have now two versions of the same story with alterations, and then we read them back to each other and we pick out the stuff that we like, that we know works best, and we mix it all together to create a third, more hybrid, balanced product at the end, a balanced script and story. It is a really taxing effort to do that because, depending on the length of the script, you're either rewriting 45 to 90 pages of a story to fit your version, and then at the end of it, you're reading it twice, two different versions twice, and then probably reading it another time where you're highlighting stuff that you really like from one of the drafts and highlighting stuff you really like from the other draft and saying, okay, all this stuff is great. It's not just simple like you have to combine them together. You got to put them together, and then you have to read it again to say, does this flow correctly? Does the tone feel the same? Is the prose or the description, does it feel like it's all one singular voice, or does it feel like we've got two people telling me a story in the same room, like at a bar across from the table, and the way one person is telling the story is very different in style compared to the other person telling the story? And it seems like that's the case we are facing here with this script, Vanished.
I agree. I think I hadn't even thought of put two and two together team, and why that would probably create that kind of just duality to it. Do you find that that's something? In general, do you think scripts are better when they're written by one person perspective?
I mean, it really comes down to the writer. Like Lord and Miller as a writing team, they know how to make a singular voice with their works. I would argue that they're in pretty good sync. When I write with something, unless it's a story that I have developed, I always try to make sure that I'm following the voice of my partner for the story that they developed. And that's usually the case. So like I've written, at least in the last 5-6 years, I have 4 different writing partners. We each wrote a story. We wrote one story that was theirs, one story that was mine. I always make sure that whoever's came up with the story, they are the main driver of the story. They're driving the narrative, they're driving the voice, and it is your job as the writing partner to make sure that everything that you do complements and fulfills that voice. And I expect no different when it's my story that I'm pitching, that I'm driving. And that just kind of keeps things pretty organized. And the benefit of a writing duo is that you have a sounding board for your ideas, but you also have a person who's able to scrutinize an idea that might not measure up to the level of the concept or the character or the goal of the story. And you want to have that voice to kind of work it through so that you're both achieving the same outcome, which is trying to make that moment really have an impact, really stand out, really be memorable, really have audiences go, wow, I can't believe they did that, and I can't believe how well that worked, and I want to go back and see it again. You get that advantage when you're working in a writing partner or a writing team. You don't always get that when you're on your own, because you'll do your initial draft, you'll send it to the people that you trust, and then they'll give you all those notes and suggestions afterwards, and then you have to figure out if you want to incorporate them into the work, or if those notes and suggestions aren't going to line up, I'm always of the mind that if I have 5 or 6 people and they send me notes, any note that is the same across those 5 is something I need to desperately address in the script, because those 5 people picked up on it, and that means likelihood that the rest of the people reading it or watching it would pick up on it, and you want to make sure that's corrected. If you get 5 sets of notes where none of them overlap and they each have different interpretations, that usually puts you in a better sign, because now you've got different engagements and you're hitting different areas of people's interest. And there's probably not much you'll need to change on the structure or character side of things. And then you're just working on making sure every single line is the best line it can be, coming from the character, to really give something juicy for potential actors to chew on.
That's interesting. So, my thought on writing teams was always that it would probably work out best if someone was maybe like the John Milius who worked on the dialogue and comes up with great monologues or conversations, and maybe someone else is stronger on describing action sequences, and that would probably be kind of a combo, right?
That's
some
one
people
version
are
of it,
really yeah, like I would, I look at somebody like Quentin, great on dialogue.
Yeah.
He's a little weak on some other elements, right?
He's
having a partner who could clean up some of those other stuff while retaining his strong connection to dialogue would probably be a good partnership.
Well, he had his original editor who sadly passed away. I think around the time Kill Bill bits were coming out. But yeah, she was able to really pull out all the great stuff that Tarantino wrote. Because when you take a look at the stuff that's on the cutting room floor from all of his movies prior to that, and then you watch his current movies, you're like, oh, I can kind of see, why.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy who decided to shoot in like 70 millimeter, and then set it entirely inside a cabin. I just want real film people to let that sink in. I'm gonna commit to getting a studio to give me, as part of the production budget, cameras and film stock to shoot 70 millimeter. And where 70 millimeters great advantage is like really capturing vista, like getting the landscapes. There's a reason like Far and Away was one, was shot in Ron Howard one. The sweeping grandeur of the landscapes in those movies. And then I'm going to set this movie almost entirely for its 2-hour plus runtime in a 10 by 10 space.
And a 10 by 10 gray wooden space.
Yeah. It's like where all the, John Ford with 70 millimeter, you're getting something like the best version of the Searcher. But
yeah.
No, that's what 70 millimeter, like, you don't, if I was the movie for 70 millimeter, I've read this script. No, you can do it on digital cameras like everybody else to keep our costs down.
That's
anyway, all that as a side note to say, circling back to this script, that it does, this is what's cool about our show here, that script runs where you break these things down. Like, I didn't even think about writing team and how that impacts the script development and making sure you're a cohesive single voice and what kind of elements would go into doing that. And if you're a new writing team, thinking about as much because you're too close to it, right? You're both, in this case, the two.
Yeah.
So close to this script that you wrote, you may not even notice that you've kind of got a dual voice that's cleaving the script and kind of lowering its overall impact.
Yeah, because you're so used to it, you just feel like it's a conversation, as opposed to two distinct voices telling the same story. I mean, it's not like I'm reminded of that Seinfeld episode where Kramer and Newman are talking about where they get spit by Keith Hernandez. And
yeah, the magic loogie.
Back
and to the left.
And the funny part is that when Kramer and Newman tell the story, it kind of you can tell it kind of works. It's like they've told the story many times before. They know how to pick up and leave off where they are. And then you have Jerry comes in and then he does his whole analysis, and it's a completely different style and tone. And that shows you the contrast between, you have these two people that are in sync, they have experienced something the same, and they're sharing that experience with an audience. And then you have a third person there who doesn't have as much intimate connection, but they're there and they know the story and they're telling it their own way. And I would argue that, with some exceptions, these two writers here are a bit more between Kramer, Newman, and Jerry, as opposed to just Kramer and Newman. Like, there's one of the writers, whoever's working on the procedural side of things, I don't think has as deep a connection to the experience that the Miller side of the family is trying to go through, and I think that's what's causing that separation of tone, because it's just kind of too flat on the police side of things. It's it almost feels like you kind of have to have Violet be the bridge between both the Millers and the police in order to maintain that tone, because however Violet responds to whatever Garcia is doing bridges that intensity, that tone, that thriller nature over into the procedural side of things, where because she's not there, it's so distant, it just kind of, to your point, feels like it's part of a different movie.
Yep. That's a...
But
yeah,
so what we end up having now is, I mean, we do get the one scene towards the end. This is going to be our spoiler cutoff moment, where Garcia ends up picking up Violet, not for any like crime or anything, but just says, I need to talk with her, and how about I give her a ride to go visit her grandma at the hospital and save you guys the trip. So I kill two birds with one stone. And we get an odd scene where Garcia is trying to get Violet's fingerprints. I think it's like on the door handle, but Violet uses her shirt sleeve to open up the door. And it's not until Garcia kind of causes a nudge that forces Violet to put her hand up against the window of the squad car does Garcia finally secure the fingerprints that she needs.
Yeah, it was an interesting scene because if you've watched enough procedurals, you start picking up on the I was waiting to see if she was going to go for DNA.
Yeah, grabbing a coffee cup or something. Yeah,
a coffee cup. They had shown that there had been sequences where Violet was smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that element, like where was she going with it? But no, she was going for the quick fingerprint angle, which is also another one. I don't mind that from a procedural standpoint. That is an element that would be happening within a procedural. The interaction still comes off weird.
It does.
Like not that it shouldn't be weird, because you've got the cat and mouse game of two people who think like the other person knows things they shouldn't, and they're not trying to confirm anything. It reminds me a lot of the scene from was it Spider-Man Homecoming?
Oh yeah, where Michael Keaton figures out
Michael Keaton's in the car and realizes that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And puts it together.
Which comes long after Peter Parker, who already realized that Adrian
he's the Vulture.
Is the Vulture, yeah.
Yeah, and so they're both doing this where they both sort of know the other one knows.
Yeah.
And then it finally becomes explicit at the end of the conversation, where in that case Michael Keaton was like, "Look, we both know what the deal is, so let's just be upfront about it." I would have been more respectful maybe if it went that route, and then she still managed to get the fingerprints or evidence. Because I wanted Violet to have more of a known ticking clock, not just like a possible one.
Yeah, more of a
but a
confirmed of yep,
like
this is
the
how much time
confirmed
she's
ticking
got.
clock,
Yeah.
so that we could really spur those last events forward based on that. The clock is now going. But we gotta. But I mean, I guess you can say that the assumed ticking clock is the fact that she did touch the window with her fingerprints.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's where we do the
By the way, I'm
cutoff
really glad that that window was so clean
that it could be
that
done.
that we knew exactly whose fingerprints those five were.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Garcia washed the squad car before she went over deliberately to pick up Violet because she knew, okay, yeah, this I'm gonna get her hand somewhere on this car. But yeah, that's our cutoff for the spoilers. Because from this scene on, that's where it hits the fan. Really, we find out, is Violet real or not? What happens with Garcia pursuing this case? All of those questions and more are only answerable if you read the script to the end. And if our conversation thus far has interested you in that, feel free to reach out to me on the socials there. I'd be happy to get you the script in your hands if you can't find it on your own accord. That's part of the fun of this show, and also the fun of being able to support this show over on the YouTube or on the Patreon side of things. But with that, little Chad, before we do our rating, are there any final thoughts you want to cover before we give it a green light or a pass?
I think, as we've said this entire time, the thriller elements are well written and much stronger. This would be, I think, a much stronger script if it focused instead of having those divergent viewpoints.
Yeah,
Because those elements are actually well written perspective. Like, they pop off the page, it's easy to visualize, they're well set up. And I don't want to, especially because we went on the tangent about the team and divergent voices and things like that. I do want to make sure, in terms of constructive criticism for the writers, that stuff was really well done.
yeah,
That was a strength. That was high level. That was, blacklist top 3 kind of writing. Focus on your strengths and and go from there.
yeah. Because sadly, it's 2/3 of this script is really, really strong, and the procedural aspect that 1/3 there, it's pretty detrimental in my opinion on that. It has the story elements which actually work. Like, all the story elements work. It's really the
they flow really well. They've got
Yeah.
they pop off the page. They're dynamic characters. Like the Violet character and her interactions with the family, especially her with Joanna,
Yeah.
is the kind of I love the thrillers where it's a mother-daughter facing off. There's so many just visceral elements to a relationship with mother and daughter, that are at the forefront for that kind of thing. There's the feminine maternal instinct versus the generational rebellion. You've got, and that's assuming it's a mother. You've got that complicate those things. Man, that's a lot of stuff to farm to have a lot of good chunky stuff to get into on the page.
Yeah.
And they were doing, and that comes off really well. It's subtle. It should be subtle. It's well written. It's well delivered. It's well, even the scene direction elements of the script are well done and written clearly so that an actor could not just do the bare minimum, but also really take it to the next level from what is being presented. That's the kind of thing that from a script standpoint, a well-written script is, in my mind, necessary for a movie to be good.
Yeah.
What can take a good movie to great is usually other elements like casting, directing, cinematography. The real nuts and bolts of taking it from page to screen.
Right.
And there's, that's where you want to give in effect a springboard, right? So the script can be a springboard where if you get the right actor, they don't just like run off it into the water in a pool, right? They take it and they put their own momentum into it, and they jumping 20 feet higher based on being able to take those well-written words from the page and putting their talent to it. But if you have a bad script, there is no springboard. It's just running off the edge of a pool and jumping into the water, right? There's only so much you can do.
And seeing as much as what you can do during the actual production side to make it work. And then, again, in the editing side to make it work as well. It's a hard feat. And yeah, like the Miller side of the story is really strong. The
Garcia side
is weak. It has some story beats that are very helpful, but they're not so dedicated or exclusive to the police side of things that they couldn't be revealed another way.
I don't want to sound mean too, but if you're gonna do a procedural where you're focusing on the detective unraveling things, you need to make it harder.
Yeah.
Because this isn't something where it took Sherlock Holmes to pull the thread and unravel it to get Moriarty. This was like, hey, can we run the fingerprints?
Sure.
Hey, how about I go over to the people that she would have been hanging out with and one knew her name? Oh, you did? And she's from Argentina? Wham, bam, I've got her entire record.
Right.
This isn't stuff where like you're showing me that in a lot of ways it reminds me of Dave Filoni writing Grand Admiral. You haven't made me think this is a detective of note.
Yeah.
This is congratulations, you did the bare minimum. And that's, I think, that's the cardinal sin of the procedural side, that there's nothing special, that there was nothing that required real gut instinct by a detective to do. Really, I mean, the idea that her gut instinct was we should verify her identity.
Yeah, that's not enough. I mean, the better gut instinct would be, how come she didn't know that? Like, I'm looking at this script, you're talking about the procedural side, so I'm thinking, you know what? You could, if you were to remove Garcia and replace her with Columbo and do all the Columboisms that would be needed to investigate this, and not so by going outside of the country, but just by constantly pestering Violet and pestering Michael and pestering Joanne in order for them to kind of break and give him what he needs in order to wrap up this case. I think that would be, I mean, granted, Columbo does exclusively homicides. Only one missing person he ever did, and that was his niece-in-law.
One more thing, Mr. Miller.
Yeah.
Your daughter here, when she went missing at 14 or 15, was a size 10 shoe. She's now a size 7.
Yeah. How do you lose 2 sizes of foot?
How'd you lose 2 sizes, huh? I just...
Was she a husky lady? Was it the size width that was that the case with your daughter? Because I've only got pictures of her from the top down. You don't really get a sense of her girth.
I mean, yeah, maybe she was wearing the wide shoes. And I know they use the metric down in the Mexicos. But
I took a look at the comparison, and it turns out that even a Mexican size 7 is still an American size 7.
I've noticed that your daughter is like Avril Lavigne number 2 and not Avril Lavigne number. That's where I think it's just they didn't do anything to make me special detective who was really keen on doing it. And that when you do procedurals, you've got to make it that the detective is dogged and latches on to something and won't let it go. Otherwise, you're doing a long where you're giving the detectives 20 minutes of television time to do their normal investigation, and then you hand it off to the prosecutors.
It's like, now we need the conviction.
Yeah, exactly. So now, having shared my thoughts, a pass or a green light, this is a pass till they bring me back a focus script.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a reluctant pass, only because the procedural side of the things really kind of
Yeah, because we both really dug the writing on the other stuff. It was well done.
and given what happens in the climax, I think replacing the procedural stuff, or at least the story of the cop, with another character might give it more stakes, might give it more thrill, might give it more intensity.
I mean, I have to be honest, and again, this is aimed at the writers. Your procedural elements completely derail the third act
Yeah.
from what could have been an exciting conclusion to a thriller. And also, the procedural elements derailing that third act really negate your very end, because that means it's complete. Like, what is the point of that?
Well, you rob the audience of catharsis, but the
Yeah.
other part too is like, you know, I know what their defense might be, which is that it's only logical that this character is what is able to discover this aspect of the story. And I understand that on the surface level, but this is a dramatic story with a thriller aspect of it. You can actually, you get the affordable one ask, and all you need to do is just figure out who's that character that's going to be that one ask that can still
But
create the
yeah.
outcomes you want, but still keep that flow, that tone, those stakes, that thriller aspect of it consistent from page 1 to page 110.
And the more impactful reveal is Joanna discovering the identity. That is
Probably,
like
yeah.
the way this is choreographed throughout the entire script. Joanna should be the one discovering the truth to make it a really huge impact.
Yeah, and I mean, again, there's so little of Joanna. It feels like she should. I mean, it's her. There's that mother to child connection that's, very important. And it just feels like it's put in the background compared to the father daughter connection that we've had for the majority of the script.
And there's a lot of meat to farm, right? You've got Michael, who, because he was the one who lost his daughter, would be so much more willing to try to, because it's sin in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And so if Joanna started asking questions like, is it normal for X, Y, or Z? Or I've noticed these little things. Michael's going to shut that down and be like, I know you blame me. Can you still not, you're still trying to blame me for things that are, like, it's an
Yeah.
easy fight script. And it's an easy reason for Michael to disregard her and her suspicions.
Right.
It gives complete cover for why Michael dives headfirst in. That's where it should have been in terms of the script. Like, Michael's reason for accepting from the beginning is guilt. His 100% guilt at losing his daughter when she got kidnapped. And that forces him to try to cover for any inconsistencies, even when Joanna's bringing it up, only for Joanna to be the one who discovers the truth. Maybe you keep it where they provide some information to question a couple things and then discover the information.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's where the script, minimizing the procedural, focusing on the key information finder by bumping up her role, emphasizing the mother-daughter part, having Eve as the red herring kind of a little bit, or even not. You can change that up a little bit. Who knows? Who knows how you kind of beef up the script once you minimize the procedural side. And I think you could end up. There's no reason it couldn't be a winner.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, again, taking some of the aspects of the procedural out frees up some real estate that you can invest in a character like Joanne, or if you can expand with Eve if you want to go that direction. But either way, you keep the story a bit more focused, because one of the notes that I do have is that this does have a high character count, even though we are focusing more so on Garcia, Miller, Michael, and Victoria. We've got all these we got the lieutenant, we got Fox, we got the cop in Mexico, we've got another witness, we got the reporter. It gets a little muddy with the number of characters, but you can definitely slim it down to be more focused on two basic goals. First one is, of course, addressing what you said of Michael's guilt and his desperation for this all to be over finally. And then you have Joanna with doubts, where maybe I mean, you could explore so much with her on doubts like, I can't believe I'm doubting this woman is my daughter. Could this be the reason why our marriage didn't work? Because I just didn't have my heart in it all the way. Like, there's so much to explore there. Or is like, is she saying like, I doubt this person because my husband is convinced it is her, and I've hated him ever since we've been divorced because he's the reason why my daughter's missing in the first place. There are some elements that you could explore that would cover the same needed discovery beats that the police can facilitate, that Joanna or another character could also facilitate as well. And I'm not saying completely write out the police in that. No, I would say keep a police officer as like a background character that is your bridge from one plot thread to another. Like Joanna would be constantly trying to get Victoria to sit down with the police and tell her story and be there to comfort her and everything. And the police would just be that excuse to maybe ask a certain question that only a cop would ask. And then Joanna judging the reaction, judging the answer from Victoria on that would help her unravel more of what's going on with this situation that the police could be dismissive of, but that Joanna as a mother is very dedicated to uncovering. And that gives a bit more agency, and also gives a bit more balance between the parents, because again, that climax at the end, I think would work better with a different character than the one that we got.
Mm-hmm.
And so for myself, so yours is a pass, mine's a reluctant pass, really just because a good third of that script does need some serious rework, tonally and structurally. Not for the story beats. The story beats are complementary. It just feels so far removed from the rest of the script that it does require a lot of work to get that back in shape, compared to other things that have minor issues that we've covered with other stories, where it's like, yeah, those minor issues don't detract from the fact that overall this script is really good. This one here, it's like that Miller family side is really good, but it's very much the Garcia side is kind of showing a broken leg on the body of the script that really needs to be addressed. Otherwise, further injury is gonna happen.
Yep, that's where I think we're both on the same page that there's a lot of writing talent here. There's a lot of good here. This is one of those ones where like we've had some scripts, at least on the shows I've on, not great.
Yeah.
and we've had a couple that have been ready to go green lights. And this one is one of the ones, this is like 80% right. Or I guess two-thirds right, 66 and a third % right. It's just the other 33 and a third is so bad, it just drags it down. And so it's like you might get a passing grade in public school, but you're not getting green light.
Not in
a little better.
Not in the studio system. No, you have to do some Steiner math there if you're a wrestling fan.
Yeah, yeah, but it's so sad because I really love some they wrote.
Yeah,
like I don't know which writer gets credit for them exactly, or if it's a real partnership where they really work, to collaboratively on every sequence.
Mm-hmm.
But those sequences, especially, I loved the sequence with visiting. Done.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good stuff there, and I think this is just another couple drafts with deciding to focus on those other elements as the story could get you there.
No, I agree. And so checking in with the Patreon audience there, those who got it, were aware of what script we'd be reviewing this week. For those that are not signed up with the Patreon, again, it comes with 1 free week membership. At the base tier, you get access to all my articles, posts, reviews, tips and tricks, and also what script we're going to be reviewing on the Saturday show. You also get to participate in whether you would give it a green light or a pass. And this week's the audience, they disagreed with us, Chad. They have the people that voted 100% that they would green light this. So they were not too bothered, I guess, by Garcia's storyline. Now, sadly, they didn't comment. And again, guys, come on. If you're members of the Patreon and you're checking out what we're reviewing and you put a vote in, please give us a comment that we'd be happy to discuss on the show, because those extra points of view are always good for conversation. It helps entertain, keep the show extra entertaining. And also, you never know. You might stumble into something that myself, the host, and the co-host did not pick up on, and that allows us to further explore that idea. So please feel free to do that. That being said, we're going to throw it over to the live chat, and we have a donation of $4.99 from the Dead Man. Thank you so much for that. Asking, I know this isn't the show for this, but real quick, thoughts on Superman.
It's funny because he's asking that for two people who actually enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, I enjoy the movie. Oh man, I'm so busy this coming week on set. I don't know how many streams I'll be able to participate, at least during the day. Maybe the late evening, I might be able to do one or two. But who knows? Maybe I'll try and see if I can squeeze something in tomorrow. Get some people. Chad would be a welcome addition to that, and we can shoot the breeze on the thoughts of Superman there, if I can figure out a way to make that work, especially in the short amount of time I have.
Yeah. My quick thought was that it's like a 7.5. It's a Batman Begins. It's got to rebuild trust after the Snyder debacles. And for the most part, it's a really solid bear in mind, it's a Silver Age take on Superman.
Yeah.
That means he takes damage. He's not. I was talking with my co-host after I to see it, and I was like, Superman is the original Shonen Jump character where there's been power creep since he got invented. Where over the 100 years he's been around, they just work it to the point where Superman's invincible. Never originally, like he also couldn't fly originally.
Yeah.
Jump really high. So Superman taking hits and bleeding and maybe having broken bones, not outside of what he's supposed to be originally. Like, it's in the 80s and 90s, dark side level, galactic invincible hero. So I don't mind seeing him bleed. I know that some people are weirded out by that. I didn't mind any of that stuff. I think, again, Silver Age take, Lex Luthor as more mad scientist and less ruthless businessman, and like Clancy Brown in the animated.
Mm-hmm.
All good takes, all Silver Age takes. I love Crypto. I thought it was great. It's a 7.5. There's that I think, again, it's like Batman Begins. In order to get the Dark Knight, you need to do the rehab of the character and get people just feeling comfortably good with it before you can really go to the next.
Yeah.
And Rachel Brosnahan was a great Lois Lane.
Yes. I thought there are some things in this I quite enjoyed. I thought it was also very refreshing to have a Lois Lane character do an investigation and not put herself in harm's way for this one time. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen in the future, but I thought it kept things in a nice area. So yeah, I'll share some more thoughts of that. I'll probably have something written up on Patreon to share, and then I'll see if I can get a stream going on the weekend to discuss that. But for now, I want to thank everyone out there for listening live, everyone out there watching on the recording. For those new to the channel, please, little chat, share with our new viewers where they can find you on the interwebs here.
Yeah, you can find me. Generally, I co-host at the Ascendant Art podcast here on YouTube. So Ascendant Art is what you'd want to search. If you want to like and subscribe, that would be awesome. We do a show Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, and it's a good hangout, fun time about Superman. And if anybody wants to go read our last episode, thoughts on it. I defend against people who weren't as enamored with it. So because that's this movie, I would, you're either liking or you're really not liking it. There's not a lot of meh, at least on the internet, which is not uncommon. So you can check it out there. I would recommend going over there because I offer a lot more detailed analysis on that. So, and then check out he does on Patreon or wherever else.
All right. So thank you so much, Chad, for joining me this weekend. I want to thank everyone out there listening and supporting the show. It's always appreciated because we love doing this stuff. 80 episodes so far. We're definitely going to cross 100 before the year's out. And even more and more scripts on the way. And remember, you guys get the advantage. You're seeing original stories being brought to the forefront here on this show. Showcasing that not every Hollywood writer is just doing an intellectual property adaptation, but they are trying to throw out some interesting takes on some classic tropes or even trying to generate a new one here. And like I always say, when it comes to great story, it all starts with the script. Thank you.